All right, so let's roll up our sleeves and dig in. There's something I want to share with you before you start crafting your blueprint, and it's a little bit of information about goals. You might be saying, I've set goals, I know what they are. You're not going to talk to me about something new, but this is the same content and curriculum and tips and tools that I share with world-class athletes, also with business people, because there's different types of goals that are meant for different periods of time. And if we don't get them right, then they're less likely to happen. And that can be very frustrating and slow our process down. So this is all based on the last 30 to 40 years of sports psychology research and goal attainment. So like I mentioned, we start with the end in mind. Where you're going to start as well is with your long-term objective. This is something that is 6 months plus down the road. So 6 months to a year, possibly even 3 years. But I would say around 12 months is a good place to start. Intermediate term objectives, these are intermediate term, like they said. So the next couple of weeks to couple of months down the road, they're in the intermediate term. Also, a couple things to keep in mind. Your long-term objective, you have little to no control. That's good news and bad news. But what you're going to do is proceed as if success is inevitable. That is not going to be the last time that you will hear me say that. With long-term objectives, you have to proceed as if success has already happened. Proceed as if the thing that you want has already transpired. And then release your expectations or the outcome. In other words, focus on the process, release the outcome, okay? Be at peace that you have little to no control over long-term objectives. Intermediate term objectives, the time span is a little shorter. You do have a little bit of control, a little bit more control, but not total control. The important one for intermediate term objectives is that they're quantifiable, in other words, measurable. These are the things that you want to think about in order, if this has already happened, so in other words, if I've already been promoted from a project manager and now I'm on track to be a director or get to that next level, what are the things that I need to do now so that can happen later? There are things that you want to measure. It might be I need to be a better speaker or orator. It might be that I need to learn a new program. Who knows what it needs to be, but it needs to be something you need to measure. And then finally, short-term objectives. Those are from the immediate time frame right now into the next couple of weeks. These are controllable. These are how they're different. These are things that you commit to and that you get to decide, I'm going to do them, I'm not going to do them. They're not dependent on any other factors. They're not going to be dependent on, are there other colleagues that might be in competition with you? They're not going to be dependent on other people's decision. You get to decide with these and for these, and these are going to be the things, the tiny little consistent steps that if you do them and do them well and do them consistently, those are going to be the ones that are going to move you towards your long-term dream and aspirations. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I've tried before. You know, I've tried before to do the thing and I've gotten shot down before, or it's just too difficult. And I'm no Olympian or CEO, so how am I possibly going to get this done? Or, you know, you might want to think about anything else that, you know, you just feel a little bit overwhelmed or frustrated. And I get that 100%. I've been there right with you. I don't want to be totally transparent and share with you how many times I wanted to scale from a small private practice into a bigger brand and help more people. I have quit and started and quit more times than I have fingers on one hand, okay? You are not alone, but what I am here to tell you is that this is different. When you shift your mindset, it's different. For me, it shifted because I spent my entire 2-decade career up to about 6 years ago helping the best get better quicker and helping them perform under pressure. But I had never given myself permission to be the expert. permission to achieve my Olympics. So I want you to start thinking about what is your long-term objective? What is your Olympics right now? And that is no less important than an Olympian getting a gold medal or a high-level business person getting a board seat or becoming CEO. So think about what is that next level for you and what is your Olympics, okay? And I'm going to introduce a worksheet that is going to help you map out your next level of success. It is called the Zoned In Success Blueprint. Now, this is going to be a step-by-step guide for you to map out what I was just talking about. So this is on page 11. This would be a great time to pull it out. I'm going to walk you through it. Now, if you need more time or you can't fill it out as I'm talking, feel free to pause the video, listen, fill it in, pause, and then move forward, okay? If you feel a little bit rushed or you're a little bit unsure. So where we start is right here, the long-term objective. Again, this is something that is in the long term. I define long term as 6 months or more. So I would encourage you to think about, if possible, like the 9 to 12 month range. And then I want you to think about two intermediate term objectives. What are 2 things that are most important for you to improve? So you're starting to take responsibility and take control of what you need to do. For example, when I went from a small private practice and to speaking and impacting over 10,000 people a year, I knew I had to learn how to become a speaker. So that was definitely an intermediate term objective. Once you think of these, I want you to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. So I would say 5 years ago, when it came to being a speaker, I was used to being a one-on-one, a coach, a consultant. I would fly around the world, work with one person at a time. So I was like a 2. I never spoken from a big stage. So I want you to think about what are the most important things and how do you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. And then finally, think about where do you need to be. So think about 2 things there. One of them might be something that's tactical. In other words, how to be a better speaker or how to be physically or tactically better at something. But one also might be how to be more confident. And that's part of the reason why you're here. So it might be, anything that's important to you. So one might have to do with mindset and one might be very tactical. But whatever the 2 things are that are important for you to take control of, for you to improve, so it'll have the most bang for your buck to achieve your long-term objective in the time period that you want to. So short-term objectives are very detailed. They're detailed as to time, as to exactly what you're going to do, as to place. So in other words, when I gave you the example of mine, it wasn't just to practice to be a better speaker. It was to practice my personal story, which is 2 minutes long, and I needed to do it between 5 and 5:15 in the morning every single day, which I did for an entire year. And also where I'm going to do it. It's going to be in the living room so I don't, wake everyone up. And my energy is going to be a level 8. So the short-term objectives should be very specific as to time and place and what you're going to do. So if you have an important upcoming meeting and you need to practice for that, it's going to be to have someone come on video with you to practice every morning before you start your work from 7:45 to 8 a.m. and to practice your tone and your energy and also how you're going to orate and how you're going to talk. So very specific. So I think I have hammered that home enough, right? Okay. So again, if you need to pause and listen to any of these, please do so now. I want to make sure that you have filled out your long, intermediate, short-term objectives. So once you have filled that out, there's a little bit more on this worksheet. Over here is your why for your long-term objective. You've touched base on this already, so you can go and extract it from your integrity worksheet. And then also I want you to think about right here, who else will this roadmap and blueprint and journey, who else will it impact? In your family, your colleagues, your company, the world, who else will it impact? And finally, here's a way to commit during the week. Okay, these are for your short-term objectives, where you're going to put your commitments for the week. If you don't want to keep printing these out all the time, you can get one of those sticky notes to put right here. So weekly, you can just swap them out, a little bit of a trick. And then finally, world-class performers, as I've mentioned, as you hear me say a lot, very strategic. So we don't want to be reactive. So we want to make sure as you're planning your weeks and what you're going to do, plan for any roadblocks you might have. If there's progress that you want to make, you know you filled out, you've done all of these things, but you have meetings coming up, or there's a wedding or family obligation, or something's happening. You want to put any known roadblocks for the week right here and think of any solutions. So in other words, if you have a full day of meetings coming up, and then that day, or if you have a family obligation, you might have to get something done one day on the weekend. So just plan for that so you're more strategic rather than reactive, and that's going to help you make the consistent progress so you can achieve what you want and deserve.